In the neon-lit heart of Las Vegas, where the city's relentless pulse never sleeps, Vanessa Drake checked her reflection in the cracked mirror of her small apartment one last time, smoothing the black satin of her dress and adjusting the delicate diamond earrings that seemed almost laughable against the harsh fluorescent light. Tonight was supposed to be like any other, a high-paying private call arranged through the agency. She had reluctantly joined after a string of financial setbacks, her mind juggling the logistics of the payment, the location, and the invisible rules of a world she had learned to navigate with practiced grace. The call was to a mansion belonging to someone called Mr. Carlyle, a name whispered in the agency's inner circles as both powerful and dangerous. A man who lived behind walls of secrecy and wealth unimaginable to most. The drive to the outskirts of the Strip felt longer than usual, the streets shimmering under the glow of streetlights that reflected off the occasional puddle left by the rare desert rain. As Vanessa approached the mansion, a sprawling fortress of marble and tinted glass, she could see the security cameras tracking her movements, the high walls looming like silent sentinels. The moment she stepped onto the driveway, a sense of unease prickled the back of her neck, a subtle vibration in the air that seemed almost imperceptible, but enough to make her pause. Before she could react further, a deafening shot cracked through the night, echoing against the mansion walls, and Vanessa stumbled forward, a sharp pain tearing through her chest, and then darkness consumed her. The distant lights of Las Vegas flickering like dying stars. The security footage, later reviewed by frantic police investigators, revealed only fragments: the shimmering gown, the faint glint of earrings, a shadowy figure disappearing into the night. Within hours, the city buzzed with speculation, gossip, and horror at the tragedy of a young woman whose life was stolen before she even crossed the threshold into luxury. A violent reminder that wealth, secrecy, and desire often intersected with deadly consequences in a city built on illusions. The investigators, seasoned and cynical, arrived at the mansion to find a scene that was meticulously clean yet somehow impossibly sinister. With no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints that pointed to an immediate suspect, only the echo of a gunshot and the faint scent of expensive perfume lingering in the air, taunting them with questions that had no immediate answers. Vanessa's colleagues at the agency whispered in hushed tones, fearful and shaken, their lives intertwined with similar precarious appointments, each wondering if their next call could end the same way. While detectives examined the mansion's elaborate security systems, tracing digital footprints that led them through a labyrinth of private tunnels, encrypted communications, and wealth-protected anonymity. By dawn, Las Vegas was already forgetting, the Strip pulsing with light, music, and the unending hum of slot machines, as though nothing had happened. While the cold reality remained, a young woman's life had been extinguished in the shadow of opulence, and the killer, ghost-like and cunning, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions, suspicion, and a story that would haunt those who dared to step into the glittering but perilous world of the City of Sin. Detective Marcus Hayes arrived at the Carlyle mansion before sunrise, the desert air biting against his skin as he surveyed the sprawling estate with a mixture of professional detachment and an instinctive unease that had been honed over years of encountering human cruelty in its most calculated forms. The gates were still closed, their cold metal bars glinting under the faint pre-dawn light, and the security team, jittery and reluctant, had already briefed him on the sequence of events. Though much of it felt like fragments from a nightmare, Vanessa Drake, a young woman with few ties outside her immediate colleagues, shot dead mere moments after stepping onto the marble driveway. No witnesses, no signs of forced entry, and a mansion whose very walls seemed to conceal more than they revealed. As Hayes stepped inside, his eyes moved over the opulent furnishings, the priceless artwork, and the meticulous order of a house that had clearly been built to display wealth rather than warmth. Each item carefully chosen, polished, and arranged, as if the absence of human mess was a priority over human empathy, a stark contrast to the chaos of a life abruptly ended in its shadow. He noted the cameras positioned strategically to cover every inch of the property. Yet somehow, in the critical seconds that mattered, the perpetrator had slipped through like a ghost, leaving no fingerprints, no weapon, nothing but questions. His team began canvassing the grounds, interviewing the staff who moved like shadows themselves, their eyes darting nervously, their voices low and careful, while forensic experts dusted for prints, scanned for residue, and collected every conceivable trace, though even the most meticulous methods yielded frustratingly little. Hayes felt the weight of the case pressing down on him, a complex puzzle where every piece seemed deliberately removed, leaving him to reconstruct a scenario so carefully orchestrated that it reeked of premeditation and insider knowledge. In the hours that followed, Hayes traced the digital communications associated with Carlyle's appointments, cross-referencing encrypted messages, call logs, and financial transfers, discovering a labyrinth of transactions designed to conceal identities and create layers of plausible deniability, each connection hinting at a web of secrets, manipulation, and a network that reached far beyond the boundaries of the mansion and the strip, touching agencies, high-profile clients, and individuals who preferred to operate in shadows. Meanwhile, outside, the city's neon lights slowly came alive, oblivious to the darkness that had visited the Carlyle estate. The casinos humming with life, tourists laughing and spending, completely unaware that their playground existed atop a foundation of danger, power, and the very real consequences of choices made in secret. Hayes, standing amidst the grandeur and terror, felt the convergence of two worlds, careless luxury of Las Vegas and the meticulous, brutal precision of someone willing to kill without hesitation, and knew that solving this case required navigating both, peeling back layers of deception while keeping Vanessa's memory alive. A young life stolen at the threshold of riches. As night approached again, the mansion remained eerily silent, a fortress guarding its secrets, while Hayes contemplated the questions that haunted him. Who had the knowledge, skill, and nerve to execute such a precise crime? Why had Vanessa been targeted, and what connections between client and victim had led to her death? In the shadows, someone watched, aware that the investigation had begun calculating their next move, confident that even the keenest detective could only see fragments of the truth, while the city outside, as always, remained indifferent, alive with neon, gambling, and sin, masking the undercurrent of violence that had turned a routine call into a deadly conspiracy. Inside the sterile, brightly lit precinct office, Detective Marcus Hayes spread a series of photographs and digital printouts across the long steel table, each image capturing fragments of the Carlisle mansion's security footage. Vanessa Drake's meticulously composed profile, and encrypted communication logs that hinted at a web of clandestine activity far more complex than a simple private call gone wrong. His mind raced, piecing together, analyzing angles, and calculating probabilities as his partner, Detective Alina Marquez, hovered nearby, her keen eyes scanning each detail for inconsistencies that might crack the case open, noting how the killer had managed to bypass state-of-the-art security, how the trajectory of the shot suggested both precision and premeditation, and how the victim's agency history revealed that she had been consistently careful, almost methodical, in vetting clients, raising the unnerving possibility that this attack was targeted and deliberate rather than opportunistic. The detectives traced every financial transaction linked to Carlisle's accounts, discovering obscure shell companies, offshore accounts, and payments made to shadowy intermediaries, each trail winding deeper into a network designed to obscure identities and intentions, a maze of deception that mirrored the mansion itself, grand, impenetrable, and dangerous. Hayes noted a pattern of previous appointments with women of similar profiles, all seemingly ordinary yet carefully selected, suggesting that Vanessa's death was part of a larger, more calculated strategy. And Marquez raised the point that the psychological profile of the killer indicated familiarity with both the agency's procedures and the personal habits of the women involved, hinting at someone who was not just violent but methodically intelligent, someone who thrived in control and secrecy. Hours turned into a relentless blur as Hayes and Marquez conducted interviews with colleagues, tracing the last days of Vanessa's life, examining personal notes, messages, and subtle behavioral shifts, attempting to identify anomalies that could point to a motive or suspect. Each conversation revealed small, almost imperceptible clues, hesitations, cryptic warnings, vague references to someone who watches that collectively painted a portrait of fear and anticipation, of a young woman who may have sensed danger but lacked the means to escape it, all while the detectives considered the mansion itself a fortress whose very design reflected power and invisibility, where walls held more than structural integrity and rooms concealed more than furniture, serving as a stage for acts that no outsider should witness. Beyond the precinct, the city carried on, neon lights flickering like artificial stars, oblivious to the violence that had occurred. Casinos thrumming with life, tourists immersed in fantasy, and yet, under the glittering surface, a current of fear and suspicion flowed among those who worked behind the scenes, aware that Vanessa's death was a warning, a reminder that wealth could protect only so much, and that secrets, no matter how well guarded, carried consequences. Hayes reviewed the autopsy report, noting the precision of the gunshot, the trajectory, the absence of struggle, confirming that Vanessa's death had been quick, almost clinical, a hallmark of someone experienced, someone who understood the anatomy of fear and the timing of fatality. He and Marquez brainstormed possible suspects, considering insiders, disgruntled associates, and powerful individuals whose influence could conceal motives and actions. while the shadows of the city seemed to echo the uncertainty of the investigation, whispering that every clue uncovered might be bait, every lead a carefully constructed illusion. By midnight, the detectives were no closer to the truth, but acutely aware that time was a luxury they did not have. The killer still at large, watching, planning, confident that each move they made was anticipated. And Hayes felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him to bring justice for Vanessa Drake, to penetrate the veil of power and secrecy that had allowed her death to occur, and to confront a darkness that thrived in the intersection of wealth, desire, and deadly intent. As the investigation deepened, Detective Marcus Hayes and Detective Alina Marquez found themselves drawn into a labyrinth of secrets surrounding the Carlisle mansion and its enigmatic owner. A man whose influence stretched far beyond the neon-lit streets of Las Vegas, touching politicians, celebrities, and underground networks, making every step forward a careful negotiation with danger. Interviews with the mansion staff revealed a rigid hierarchy and a culture of silence, where loyalty was enforced subtly through fear and privilege, and where even the smallest slip could have deadly consequences, suggesting that the killer may have been someone with intimate knowledge of the household, familiar with its schedules, blind spots, and the intricate patterns of daily life, a shadow moving unseen through a gilded fortress. Meanwhile, Hayes traced Vanessa's last communications, a mix of mundane messages and coded hints that hinted at unease, noting a cryptic text sent to a close friend mere hours before the appointment, reading almost like a premonition, and a voicemail that carried an uncharacteristic hesitation in her voice, subtle yet revealing, the kind of detail that could unravel a meticulously constructed facade. Each piece of evidence, however minor it seemed, was scrutinized for inconsistencies, motives, and connections to the labyrinthine network that Carlisle maintained, a network built on money, influence, and secrecy. The detectives also examined prior incidents tied to the mansion, rumors of disappearances, unexplained deaths, and threats that had been quietly stole, pointing to a pattern of control and a willingness to eliminate perceived threats without public scrutiny, suggesting that Vanessa's murder was neither random nor impulsive, but part of a calculated strategy that leveraged fear as a tool of manipulation and dominance. A chilling reminder that in the world of the ultra-wealthy, appearances were carefully curated and lives could be expendable. As surveillance footage was pieced together, Hayes noticed subtle anomalies, a reflection in a window, a shadow that didn't match anyone on staff, a faint movement near a side entrance that suggested the presence of a third party, possibly an accomplice or hired killer, someone trained to operate within these highly controlled environments. The realization that multiple people could be involved escalated the complexity of the case, making the already opaque investigation even more perilous, as each layer of secrecy seemed designed to mislead and protect the true orchestrator of violence. At the same time, Marquez pursued leads outside the mansion, uncovering links between Carlisle's financial dealings and entities associated with organized crime, black market auctions, and the underworld's darker corners, painting a picture of a man who manipulated both legal and illegal avenues to consolidate power and evade accountability, while simultaneously maintaining a veneer of legitimate opulence, philanthropy, and sophistication, a duality that complicated any attempt to predict his moves or anticipate his threats. As night fell over Las Vegas, the city shimmered with artificial light, oblivious to the deadly undercurrents beneath its glittering surface. While Hayes and Marquez reconstructed Vanessa's final moments in painstaking detail, analyzing trajectories, security blind spots, and timing to theorize the sequence of events that led to her death, the more they uncovered, the more it became evident that the killer had exploited both the physical architecture of the mansion and the pathological vulnerabilities of those involved, blending into the opulent environment with unnerving ease. By the end of the day, Hayes was convinced that solving Vanessa's murder would require navigating a maze of deception, privilege, and hidden alliances, confronting individuals who wielded influence with ruthless precision, and peeling back layers of secrecy that few dared to expose. While Marquez documented every connection, every anomaly, every hint that could pierce the armor of silence surrounding Carlisle, their determination tempered by the sobering knowledge that in a city built on illusion, truth was often as elusive and dangerous as the shadows they chased. The following morning, Detective Marcus Hayes returned to the Carlisle mansion with a renewed determination, his mind sharpened by every lead, every cryptic message, and every subtle hint uncovered in the prior days. As he and Detective Elena Marquez meticulously retraced Vanessa Drake's final movements, examining the mansion's grand halls, private elevators, and hidden corridors, each space more elaborate and deceptive than the last, revealing a fortress designed not only to display wealth, but to conceal secrets, a place where every door, every camera angle, and every servant's routine could be manipulated to facilitate undetected intrusion or escape. Hayes observed the angles of the driveway from which the fatal shot had been fired, noting shadows, reflective surfaces, and obstructions that could either aid a calculated shooter or confuse investigators. While Marquez cross-referenced staff schedules and private client lists, identifying inconsistencies that suggested someone within the mansion had orchestrated access, timing, or distraction, possibly collaborating with an external hand, a professional with knowledge of both security and psychology, whose presence had been invisible to even the most sophisticated systems. As the day progressed, Hayes pieced together a probable sequence: Vanessa's arrival, her brief interaction with security, and the moment she had been struck, while simultaneously considering alternative scenarios. Could the shot have been fired remotely, from a vantage point not captured by cameras? Or had the perpetrator used knowledge of blind spots to remain undetected, blending seamlessly into shadows? Each possibility carried implications, pointing toward a killer methodical enough to exploit minute details, ruthless enough to eliminate a young woman for reasons likely tied to control, leverage, or personal vendetta, and precise enough to leave virtually no evidence behind. In parallel, Marquez contacted Vanessa's acquaintances, friends, and colleagues to uncover any threats or unusual behavior prior to the fateful night, finding subtle indicators of tension, fleeting mentions of an unknown admirer or stalker, and cryptic warnings that hinted Vanessa might have been wary of a dangerous individual she could not identify. The detectives documented each fragment, aware that even minor details could expose motives and connections. while forensic experts re-examined the mansion for overlooked traces, microscopic fibers, and residues that could indicate tools, weapons, or methods used in the assassination, all the while acknowledging that the sophistication of the crime suggested a premeditation designed to frustrate any conventional investigation. As Hayes delved deeper, he began tracing Carlyle's broader network, discovering transactions with shell corporations, accounts linked to offshore locations, and affiliations with individuals notorious for handling matters discreetly, pointing toward a calculated orchestration of events extending beyond a personal grudge, and perhaps implicating a system of hired enforcers, intermediaries, or insiders conditioned to act without hesitation or exposure. A network operating beneath the veneer of opulence and legality. By late afternoon, the detectives convened in the mansion's security room, reviewing playback of cameras, noting subtle discrepancies in timing, reflected shadows, and movement patterns, creating a composite hypothesis of the killer's route, actions, and potential collaborators, while also contemplating the psychological profile of an individual capable of committing such a precise, cold-blooded murder, calculated, patient, and strategic. With intimate knowledge of both the mansion and the behavioral patterns of those who entered it, especially women like Vanessa, trained to appear confident yet vulnerable to manipulation. As dusk approached, Hayes stepped out onto the balcony overlooking the strip, the city alive with neon noise and oblivious energy, reflecting the stark contrast between the perpetual spectacle of life and the dark intricacies hidden behind closed doors. And he felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever to uncover the truth, bring justice for Vanessa Drake, and navigate a perilous landscape where wealth, secrecy, and criminal ingenuity intertwined, where a single misstep could leave the investigation derailed, and where the real danger lay not only in the murderer's skill, but in the shadows cast by power, greed, and hidden alliances that dictated who lived, who died, and who remained unseen. As night descended over Las Vegas, painting the strip in a kaleidoscope of neon lights, Detective Marcus Hayes and Detective Alina Marquez returned to their hotel room, their minds still entangled in the intricate web surrounding Vanessa Drake's murder, reviewing notes, security footage, and witness statements, trying to connect the dots between the mansion's internal operations, the mysterious figures surrounding Carlyle, and the unsettling possibility of an accomplice who had seamlessly merged into the shadows, a presence so subtle that it left no trace yet influenced every event of that night. Hayes noted how Vanessa's punctuality, demeanor, and cautious professionalism had been exploited by someone with intimate knowledge of her routines, someone patient and calculating, while Marquez cross-referenced data from the agency, uncovering a list of prior clients with reputations for secrecy, power, and potential threat, raising the chilling realization that Vanessa had unknowingly stepped into a game far larger than her assignment, a deadly collision of wealth, secrecy, and predatory intent. Throughout the evening, they explored the mansion's architectural blueprints, tracing potential blind spots, hidden corridors, and alternative access points, realizing that the killer had likely rehearsed the attack meticulously, utilizing angles and timing invisible to even the mansion's state-of-the-art cameras, demonstrating both audacity and precision. Forensic experts' reports corroborated this, showing a clean trajectory, absence of fingerprints, and a shot so expertly executed it could only have come from someone with both knowledge of firearms and familiarity with the environment, hinting at a professional contracted for a specific purpose, with the sole intent of eliminating Vanessa efficiently and without detection. Hayes also considered the psychological dimensions, questioning the motivations behind targeting a young woman in such a controlled, high-risk environment, pondering whether it was a warning, a demonstration of power, or part of a more extensive scheme involving manipulation of the agency. Carlyle's associates, or external parties, invested in secrecy and influence. Marquez, meanwhile, traced subtle behavioral cues from the mansion staff, their hesitations, nervous glances, and guarded conversations suggesting either complicity, fear, or both, indicating that someone had been carefully positioned to monitor, distract, or mislead during the fatal event. Outside their hotel room, the city thrummed with oblivious energy. Tourists wandering, music spilling from casinos, and lights reflecting off wet streets, juxtaposing the darkness of calculated human cruelty within opulent walls against the perpetual life of the Strip. A reminder that violence could exist unnoticed amidst spectacle, and that, in Las Vegas, perception was often more important than reality. Hours turned into the early morning as Hayes traced financial records linking Carlyle to obscure offshore accounts, payments to intermediaries with ambiguous roles, and evidence of orchestrated cover-ups for prior suspicious incidents, revealing a pattern of influence, intimidation, and lethal enforcement, and a system capable of removing obstacles efficiently and silently. The detectives realized that uncovering Vanessa's killer would require navigating both the visible and invisible networks of power, tracing every subtle connection and confronting individuals accustomed to operating above scrutiny, whose wealth and influence could bend both law and perception to their favor. By sunrise, Hayes and Marquez had constructed a preliminary profile of the perpetrator, someone meticulous, strategic, and intimately familiar with both human behavior and environmental control, likely possessing connections to Carlyle's inner circle, while Vanessa, though cautious and skilled, had unknowingly fallen victim to someone whose patience and preparation had far exceeded her anticipation. The detectives understood that each subsequent step required extreme precision, collaboration, and vigilance, knowing that one wrong assumption could allow the killer to vanish again, leaving the case unresolved and justice for Vanessa elusive. As they packed their materials to head back to the mansion, both detectives were acutely aware that the stakes were escalating, that the killer's confidence was growing with every unanswered question, and that the intersection of wealth, secrecy, and lethal intent created an environment where even the most skilled investigators had to operate with equal measures of intellect, caution, and resolve, preparing for a confrontation with forces operating in shadows, in a city where every glittering light could mask danger. By midweek, Detective Marcus Hayes and Detective Alina Marquez had compiled an intricate dossier of evidence, timelines, and potential suspects, yet the case of Vanessa Drake's murder continued to defy easy explanation, revealing a level of sophistication and planning that suggested both intimate knowledge of the Carlyle mansion and a calculated manipulation of human behavior. forcing the detectives to consider that the perpetrator was someone who not only understood physical security, but also the psychology of fear, control, and influence. The mansion staff, previously cooperative yet guarded, now revealed subtle inconsistencies in statements, fleeting expressions of anxiety, and silent glances exchanged when certain names were mentioned, hinting at internal knowledge that could not be ignored. While digital forensics uncovered encrypted correspondence between Carlyle and unknown intermediaries, messages that suggested orchestration and oversight rather than spontaneous violence, emphasizing that Vanessa's death was part of a deliberate strategy rather than a random act. Hayes and Marquez spent long hours analyzing camera footage frame by frame, noting shadows, reflections, and minute movements, reconstructing the moments leading up to the fatal shot, while cross-referencing the trajectory with environmental factors, angles, and timing, concluding that the killer had exploited both the mansion's architectural vulnerabilities and the predictable behavior of staff, blending into the surroundings with precision and patience. It was a chilling reminder that brilliance and malevolence often coexist, and that the line between calculated efficiency and brutality can be razor-thin. In parallel, Hayes explored Carlyle's social and business connections, discovering ties to influential figures whose names carried both respect and fear, as well as whispered rumors of clandestine deals, silenced complaints, and arrangements that ensured complicity or neutrality, illustrating a network where accountability was optional, obedience was incentivized, and visibility was a carefully managed illusion. Marquez, meanwhile, focused on Vanessa's personal communications, uncovering subtle signals of anxiety, fleeting observations, and faint indications that she had sensed danger in her final hours, all of which underscored the inevitability of her vulnerability in a situation orchestrated by someone with both power and intent. The detectives hypothesized the possible involvement of professional operatives skilled in infiltration, observation, and elimination, capable of executing a crime with meticulous precision, leaving minimal trace, and orchestrating the environment to their advantage. Evidence of surveillance, manipulation, timing, coordination, and strategic placement of personnel suggested not a single actor, but a coordinated effort, elevating the complexity of the investigation and heightening the urgency of anticipating the killer's next move. As night descended over the strip, Hayes and Marquez convened in a quiet, windowed room overlooking the neon chaos, realizing that every decision, every interaction, and every lead carried enormous weight. For the killer was not merely reactive, but proactive, potentially monitoring their progress, predicting their strategies, and remaining one step ahead. It was a race against intellect, preparation, and ruthlessness, where patience and precision were as deadly as any weapon. Hours of analysis led to the formulation of a breakthrough theory. The killer had intimate knowledge of the mansion, the staff, and Vanessa's routines, possibly facilitated through a network of insiders, signaling that Carlyle's world of wealth and influence was far more entangled with danger than previously imagined, and that Vanessa's death was a demonstration of power as much as a targeted execution. By dawn, Hayes and Marquez understood that capturing the perpetrator required navigating the overlapping layers of secrecy, loyalty, and manipulation, confronting individuals unaccustomed to challenge, and anticipating strategies designed to obscure truth, while the city outside continued its indifferent pulse. Neon lights flickering like eternal eyes over the shadows of crime, secrecy, and lethal calculation, leaving the detectives both awed and wary of the sophistication, patience, and audacity that had allowed Vanessa Drake's life to be extinguished so easily, yet demanded justice with unwavering resolve. The final confrontation of the investigation unfolded like a carefully choreographed chess match, with Detective Marcus Hayes and Detective Alina Marquez tracing the last strands of evidence to a secluded penthouse in the outskirts of the city, a luxurious yet sterile environment that reflected the meticulous precision and hidden ruthlessness of the individual they now suspected had orchestrated Vanessa Drake's murder. Every detail in the apartment artwork, furniture placement, security devices, and lighting spoke of control, awareness, and deliberate design. And as Hayes studied the room, he could sense the mind behind the crime, calculating, observing, always one step ahead, yet leaving just enough evidence for a persistent investigator to follow. A game of intellect and patience that had culminated in this moment. Through days of painstaking analysis, cross-referencing digital footprints, financial transactions, and security anomalies, the detectives had identified subtle patterns, obscure payments, orchestrated blind spots in camera coverage, and timing sequences that aligned with Vanessa's arrival at the mansion, suggesting that the killer was not merely skilled but obsessive, methodical, and intimately familiar with both the Carlyle estate and the agency's procedures, able to manipulate both space and perception to achieve a lethal outcome. Every movement, every shadow, every whisper in Vanessa's final hours had been anticipated, controlled, and exploited. Hayes and Marquez coordinated their entry with precision, communicating silently, checking every angle and entrance, knowing that a misstep could allow the killer to escape once more or trigger another violent act, the weight of Vanessa's death pressing on their resolve. The detectives were armed not only with weapons, but with knowledge, strategy, and the moral imperative to prevent further loss of life. Their every decision, guided by evidence and intuition honed over years of high-stakes investigations. As they moved through the penthouse, forensic confirmation of prior surveillance manipulation, access codes, and digital alterations solidified their theory that the perpetrator had relied on both technological savvy and psychological mastery, exploiting trust, predictability, and human tendencies to orchestrate the perfect crime, leaving virtually no trace while demonstrating absolute control over life and death. Hayes felt a mixture of apprehension and determination, knowing that confronting such a meticulous individual required equal measures of patience, courage, and intellectual rigor. In the climactic moment, the detectives cornered the suspect, whose calm demeanor and confident composure belied the brutality of the actions uncovered, revealing a persona that thrived in secrecy, wealth, and manipulation. Someone capable of orchestrating murder from a position of perceived untouchability, yet ultimately vulnerable to the relentless pursuit of truth and justice. Questions were asked, admissions extracted, and the narrative of Vanessa's final hours reconstructed, each revelation underscoring both the meticulous planning of the killer and the devastating consequences of power left unchecked. The arrest and subsequent investigation revealed a network of complicity, intimidation, and covert operations that extended beyond the immediate crime, implicating individuals who had facilitated, ignored, or benefited from a system designed to protect the wealthy and influential at the expense of human life, highlighting the intersection of money, secrecy, and moral compromise that had allowed such violence to occur. As Hayes and Marquez closed the case, a mixture of relief, sadness, and reflection settled over them. Vanessa Drake's life, though tragically cut short, had sparked a chain of accountability, unraveling the carefully constructed layers of concealment and control, while the city outside continued its indifferent, glittering rhythm. Neon lights flickering over a world where beauty and danger coexist, and where the pursuit of justice often comes at the intersection of intellect, courage, and moral resolve. In the end, the detectives walked away with more than closure. They carried the weight of lessons learned about human ambition, obsession, and the lethal combination of wealth and secrecy. A haunting reminder that beneath the surface of opulence and spectacle, darkness can flourish, but so can determination, justice, and the relentless pursuit of truth